I'm first going to do a mushroom and orzo soup. Orzo is a type of pasta that looks just like rice. And the second recipe I'm going to do is a pork loin, and I'm going to stuff the pork loin with roasted pasilla peppers and some cheddar cheese, and I'm going to show you how I make my home fries and do a little bit of sauteed Swiss chard with some oyster sauce. And then the last item I'm going to do is a dessert, and it's with sauteed pineapple, strawberries, and sour cream brown sugar. It's a really easy dish to do. If it's a dessert and I do it, it's usually pretty easy. I'm not much for desserts. I don't like to measure, so when it comes to baking and stuff like that, it's not my category. In fact, I don't think I own a measuring cup in my house. I'm going to start with boiling the orzo on the side, and excuse me, you can always do a cream, soup or anything like that, or to thicken a soup, or you can use a starch. And the different starches you can use are potatoes, rice, couscous, or in this case I'm going to use some orzo. Orzo is a pretty neat pasta. You can sort of pretend it's rice. It's a really great Greek dish you do where you make it like a pilaf. You saute onions and brown the orzo, and then keep adding chicken stock until you get a nice starch that's great with to put on the side of things. Go ahead and get my pot going here. I usually start off most of my soups with the same ingredients. I do some onions, I do some garlic, some Italian seasoning, and I almost always use chicken base. You can take this base and really do any other vegetable soup or any other type of chicken soup, beef soup, anything like that. Whoop. I got a burner on here, excuse me. There we go. Why am I clicking? I should be clicking. Huh. That stopped it. Okay. What's that?
I said it's still trying to ignite.
It shouldn't be. They're both on. Okay, back to slicing mushrooms. Excuse me. Mushrooms, doesn't really matter if you've got some mushrooms that have been in the fridge a little while and they've opened up for something like a soup like this. And you want to... It's probably clicking because it keeps getting water on the... Should keep the bubbles down. Sorry. Let me switch stoves here. Okay. This is going to be a comedy of errors. Excuse me all the clicking. It'll stop in a second, hopefully. Same here, batch. Oh wait, I got a lighter. Okay, finally. Back to slicing mushrooms. Excuse me. As far as soups go, I love to make soups, and they're a great way to clean out the things in your fridge that are almost going bad instead of throwing things out. The vegetables are soft, but not moldy. Aren't really good for necessarily sauteing, to have with dinner. The soup is a great way to use up something that otherwise you might throw away. And a lot of restaurants will do that. You look at what you bought too much of, or you're not going to sell in time before it goes bad. The soup's a great way to clean up that inventory and keep your food costs down. Generally, when I go to the store, I decide what I'm going to eat that day or make that day by what's on sale. So I'll go through and if asparagus is on sale, I'll do asparagus or anything like that. The reason I'm sauteing the mushrooms along with the onions and garlic is I want to pull out the flavor of the mushrooms by sauteing them. You put a little bit of color on mushrooms and add some wine, you really make the flavor so much more intense. If you guys have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask. Finish these off. I got a good trick I'll show you guys in a second that I do with garlic. I can't stand, excuse me, when I have to clean up all the garlic paper in the house, you know, when you smash it or whatever. So I always put it in a Ziploc, and you just put your weight on it, and that'll break apart all the different garlic pieces, and then just keep putting some pressure on it, and you can break off all the skin, and then all you have to do is keep the garlic in there, but it'll just go ahead and take the paper off it while it's in the container if you've smashed it. But in this case I didn't. Just another thing you can do is make sure the garlic is facing down. Put your hand on it, and the garlic paper, the skin will come right off. And as far as mincing this, one of my more favorite ways to do it is the back of the knife. And you can mince it like that. Get a couple more chops. Pop that in there. You got to have onions. Onions really add great flavor to a soup. It really doesn't matter what onion you grab. Red onions, Maui onions, sweet onions. They're all good. And one of the things we talk about a lot in cooking is the natural sugars, and we want to caramelize the natural sugars that are in the onion because it adds flavor and another dimension to your soup. The size of, you know, what size you cut your vegetables is really up to you. If you like a nice chunky soup, do big chunks. If you're more into tiny bits, or some people don't really like the texture of onions, then just dice it really fine. And then you get the flavor, but you don't necessarily have to worry about the texture of the onion if that bothers you. Bring that orzo up a little bit more. And Italian seasoning, I always put Italian seasoning in almost every soup I do. You want to do that near the end because you don't want to burn the seasoning. You want to pull out the flavors. And those onions are strong. And this is also a good time to put your wine in. Now, when we cook with alcohol, we've got to realize that we don't want the actual alcohol in the dish. We want the essence of the alcohol. And we take, if this was a really bad bottle of wine, and we take the flavor of it and we condense it, we're going to have even more bad flavors. So that's why Julia Childs always said, you know, cook with the wine you'd like to drink. So it's, if you drink wine and you got a little bit left over from the night before, throw it in the fridge, even if it's red wine. That way it won't turn to vinegar, it won't go bad. And then when you want to cook something with wine, you've got some good wine handy. If I was doing couscous, I probably would just put it right in the soup because I wouldn't need to cook it on the side. The reason I'm cooking it on the side, this way I pull out the starch, and I can pour all that starch in there because that's going to be a part of the thickening agent for the soup and give the soup some body. And when I do any soup, I almost always use a granulated chicken bouillon or a chicken paste. If you use your chicken bouillon or your chicken paste as your salt, then you don't have to use any salt, and you'll have a more flavor to the soup, more body to the soup. So it's a really good way of adding the salt and flavor to the soup at the same time. Now I usually just put a little bit in, and then as I build the soup, you taste it and make sure it's salty enough. If it's not salty enough, just keep adding more bouillon. But it's difficult to take salt out of something, so add it, taste it, add it, and taste it, and that way you'll get a little bit more control over the flavors you put into the soup. I'm going to wait one more second, get a little more of that wine out, or the alcohol, before I throw in the orzo for my that's good. And that's probably about the texture I wanted. It's not too thick, and if I were to let this to cook for say another 10 or 15 minutes, it's going to become like a block of orzo, because all that moisture is going to get eaten up by the orzo, plus the orzo will get bigger and you won't have as much liquid. Now, that's okay if you want a real thick sauce or soup, but you can always water it down. But then when you water it down, you got to realize you're going to dilute the chicken base, so you got to taste it again to make sure it's what you want. And this would be a good time to always add pepper, and definitely use fresh black pepper versus the jarred stuff. It just has so much more flavor. Give it a taste. Use a little bit more chicken bouillon. And sometimes you'll grab wine and it'll make it tart. Maybe a little bit sour. Just put a little bit of honey in there, or a little bit of sugar. That'll balance it out. And sometimes when we're doing like a hot and sour soup, we do it on purpose. We want that tangy and the sweet and those flavors. But and often if you use anything jarred, like say you use or canned tomatoes, they store it in citric acid. Citric acid also needs to be balanced with something sugary if you're using it in a soup or a dish. That's why a lot of times people put sugar in their red pasta sauce. Could you give me a nice serving bowl from the back for the soup? Thanks, Jerry. And that's about it. I mean, my soups are fast, and take one more test. It's good. Now, if you like hot sauce, I usually put tons of hot sauce in everything I do. I highly recommend the sriracha sauce. And the reason I like it so much is it isn't like a Tabasco. Tabasco is held in vinegar. So once again, we'd be adding something that's sour to our soup, which we don't really want to do. This is a base of tomato, garlic, and hot chili peppers. So it's going to add the heat you want, but it's not going to distract the flavor with the vinegar. I live on that stuff. It's great on pizza too. And so there you got your orzo and mushroom soup. And I like to always add a little bit of cheese in soups. Put that at the end. And if you like hot, add the sriracha. And if you like basil, and you happen to have some fresh basil, I don't think you can beat the flavor. And when you work with basil, do it the last second. Basil is sort of like apples and avocado. It changes color very quickly after you slice it or do a chiffonade like this. So really you want to do that last second. And quick little more black pepper at the end. And there you have a mushroom and orzo soup. What I'm going to do is roast these pasilla peppers. Now, you roast the peppers for two reasons: to add flavor, and they also have a pretty tough skin on them. So it's a way of getting the skin off real fast and adding flavor at the same time. Pasilla peppers aren't really spicy. Sometimes you might get one that is a little bit, but most of the spice is in the seeds and in the white pith on the inside. So usually you clean that off and you're not in real hot. You'll have a nice pepper flavor instead of a really hot pepper flavor. One of the tricks that I always do for pounding out anything like chicken cutlet or veal or pork is 2 Ziplocs. And where's my hammer? Okay. When you do, don't use the grated part, you know, because you're gonna have funny looking plastic. So you use the side, and when you hit down, what you're trying to do is sort of push away from the center. So when you hit, flatten out. And the reason you do this is almost any piece of meat you do, you'll find that it's pretty tender when you get it this thin. So even if it's a cheap cut of meat or a tough cut of meat, you can make it pretty tasty and pretty tender by pounding it out like that. Make it nice, real nice thin, which will be perfect for rolling our cheese and our peppers in. Now, when you're cooking the peppers, sometimes it looks like you're burning the heck out of them, but you'll notice after the skin gets washed off, it's pretty green and tasty. Have a look at these. We're getting there. We want to do a little bit more.
Can you do those with the red ones as well?
Absolutely. Definitely do it with the red ones. And if you don't have a gas stove, you can do it under the broiler. You can do it on the barbecue.
Do you put nothing, you put no oil on them or anything?
No, totally unnecessary. Totally unnecessary, yeah. In fact, you might have a little bit of a fire problem with the
How is he doing that?
If you go to the international market on Decatur and Trop, they actually have probably a dozen different varieties of roasted peppers. And they're if you look at the price of how many peppers you get in a jar versus doing it yourself, it's a really good deal. You probably want to get the ones that are stored in oil and not in a citric acid base, because that flavor that the acid adds to the pepper is going to distract from the flavor you're trying to achieve. I'll try to be a little more efficient. I'll grab a couple of these at the same time. You can also do this with the thin slice chicken breast or with turkey breast, veal. I know some people are against eating veal, but if you're into veal, of course you could do it with beef as well. That should be enough for what we're doing. These, now if you got a little spot like that, and if you keep cooking there, maybe it'll start to burn, just put it on the side of the stove like that, just so you get the heat just on that area. That one's pretty underdone, so that's definitely something you want to keep an eye on.
What degree do you have the burner on?
Full blast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This is a pretty powerful stove. Get my flame on there. Am I going to ignite? Seems to be a lighter day. Turn that way down. Now my potatoes, I've got 2 potatoes, and these are baked potatoes already. They're already soft. You can nuke them. And when I nuke a potato, I usually just throw it in there and put it on 3 or 4 minutes. Feel it. And what you want is a nice soft potato. One of the things that makes like the fries at McDonald's so good is they're cooked twice. And what they do with French fries is what we call blanching. Is you cook it at a low temperature. I think it's around 120, 140 degrees, and then cook it again. You take it out, let the oil bring up and heat, and you get that real crispy French fry. It's almost impossible just to put a French fry in oil and come out with a crunchy French fry. It won't happen. And for oil, use a little bit of olive oil. You can use anything you want, but I definitely like the flavor of olive oil. And put your potatoes in, and put your cut side down. And what we're really looking for is a really nice crispy. I like my potatoes really crispy. So if we give them a little time to cook, bring it up to heat, then turn the heat down, give them more time to get really crispy. And those are about done. They look like there's nothing left. You'll see in a second. But, a lot of chefs will throw these in a plastic bag or a paper bag and let it sweat. it's not necessary. You can just take it right into the sink and with your thumb push off the black, and then since you're already down here, open it up, pull out the core at the top and turn it inside out, get the rest of the seeds off, and pull out any of the pith or the vein on the side, and that way you make sure you don't get it too spicy. Myself, I don't care, but I always make things under spicy so that you don't offend somebody who's over having dinner. You can also even do this with jalapenos. If you ever had Chipotle's roasted jalapenos. One more here. You probably won't use them all, but what the heck. Over here, might as well clean it off. If you have extras at the end of roasting these, throw them in a Ziploc. Next time you're doing some vegetables or whatever, julienne them, throw them in there, and they add great flavor. I really love these peppers. Little seeds there. The funny thing about hot stuff, when it hits your tongue, it's actually an alkaline. And if you guys know anything about pH, you got acid and alkaline. And if your tongue is burning, the best thing to do is an acid, because it'll balance out the pH. So if you're like frying your tongue, biting the lemon helps. Or good beer, if you're of age. These, they're pretty light, so they're doing pretty good. And while we're cooking everything else, those will cook away. And I'll take a couple of these, and we call in French cookery is a julienne, which is a thin slice. One thing that really helps when you're chopping peppers is a sharp knife. I always have a tendency to stick together, and you cut it, and it's like a slinky still. A couple of these lined up. And you want to season the meat. Oh, didn't pound that one out. You want to season the meat before you put any stuffing in there. And for this, I'm just going to be simplistic. A little bit of salt. This is kosher salt. You can use regular salt. It's not going to matter too much. And some black pepper. And put some peppers in the middle of each one. And I got some cheddar cheese. Cheddar cheese, jack cheese. Almost any cheese would be good in this. It's really what you have in the fridge. And there's enough fat on the pork that we really don't need to add any oil to the pan. When you add oil when you're going to saute some meat, you're really looking at it because it's dry. And there's enough fat in this, plus we've got the cheese on the inside. It's just not necessary to add any butter or anything. You can, but it really isn't necessary. Turn the heat up on that, and I'll get a couple more pounded out here. Waste not, what not. Have a look at my potatoes. They're just starting to get crisp. And I'll go ahead and turn them on the sides so we get the other side going. I usually season my potatoes at the end. The nice thing is they sort of break apart, so you get even a little more crispiness on the inside of them. This is Swiss chard, which grows very well in gardens, and it's good, very good for you. It's a vegetable a lot of people don't really know what to do with. And a friend taught me this dish. It's simple, but it's good stuff. There's also red chard. You can use a combination of the two if you want some extra color. And in this case, we're going to do a thick cut chef nod. I've got some heat going in my pan here. We'll put a little bit of olive oil. And gotta have some garlic ready for it. Those are going well. Usually if I'm doing these, I put a lid on it, but I want you guys to see it cooking. What the lid will do is actually sort of create an oven, so you have some of the heat coming down from above as well. It's starting to smell good. More garlic. Show you guys another way to prepare garlic. Take the bottom side of your knife, pop it on there, smash it, and then again, just a couple little cuts. Our garlic in there. And I'm going to add a little bit of white wine as well. These are ready to flip. A nice golden brown on the bottom. And as they cook at this point, the meat's pretty much settled and it's not going to unravel. It's, the meat's already pulled in and it's not going to change its shape much by doing that. Yeah, that way it'll stick it together. Yeah. You don't want to cook the Swiss chard too long. Otherwise it just gets too wilty and it's sort of it becomes sort of mushy. No reason to put any salt in it because we're going to finish it off with a little oyster sauce, which is naturally salty. I'm getting pretty close to what I want there. I'm just looking for cooked, but not like you would do spinach. I don't want it all the way wilted. Now, because these are so thin, they cook, pretty fast. So we're almost all the way cooked through it. You see on the side, you need just a little bit more. Just turn it, give it a few seconds of heat. But for now, I'm going to set these aside. So I want to make a sauce, and I'm pretty cooked. In the United States, we had for years trichinosis, so people would always overcook pork. And there hasn't been a case of trichinosis in over 20 years in the United States, so it's not necessary anymore to dry the heck out of your meat. Turn that off. Now for the sauce, I figure since I was doing a little bit of Mexican cooking, I'd use a little tequila. It's not igniting. Try one more time. They have the fireworks. I'm going to add some sesame seeds to my Swiss chard. And some oyster sauce. The oyster sauce I just do a little bit on the end. You don't want it on every little piece. You just want a little bit of taste here and there as you go through. oyster sauce. And some more sriracha. Now I've got on the bottom of the pan, by putting the alcohol in there, all the drippings in essence that are stuck to the pan have come up. And there's a lot of flavor in that. This is whole whipping cream. If you wanted to go a little low calorie or less fat, you could do a tomato-based sauce, some onions, and something like that. But this just is really good with this dish, so I use the cream. You see how the cream has changed color? Real quick there. That's all the drippings that are in the pan. Do some more of the peppers. We've got that on high temperature because we're reducing the cream. Reduction, in essence, is when you have moisture in something, you keep the heat going, all the water leaves it gets thicker. And if it gets too thick, add a little more cream back in. And let's put a little bit of cheese in there. We've got our potatoes pretty much done. They're just nice and crispy. Lots of crunch. Great way to do something with leftover potatoes. The Swiss chard, there's usually a little bit of moisture left, so if there is, just give it a second to drip, because you don't really want watery, drippings on your plate. It's going to dilute your sauce and sort of look funky. And the cream sauce is where I want it. Actually, it's a little bit thick. You can either add a little milk or a little bit of water at the last second, and that'll so if it gets too thick, bring it back and thin it out. And we've got our pork loin. And so that you guys can try some, I'm just going to put one down there. With the peppers on there. Just pour the sauce right on there. And there you have a stuffed pork tenderloin with cheese, roasted pasilla peppers, new used potatoes, and sauteed Swiss chard with oyster sauce. What the heck? Put a little bit of cheese in there too. Now, when you're at the store and you want to buy pineapple, there's a couple things you want to do. You want to smell it. You want that pineapple smell coming out, and the leaves at the top should just pop right out. And that way you'll know you've got a really ripe pineapple.
Look for the dough.
What's that?
Look for the dough tag.
The dull tag. And to clean them, you want to cap it. You see how nice and ripe that is. And the color too. It's got this nice yellow color on it, so it's probably going to be pretty good. And just take your knife and follow down the side. And what you do is, here's the last of the stuff that you don't want, with the little brown part. And just watch here. Don't worry about what your knife's doing over here. And just keep slicing down and turn your knife in as you go to the bottom. Serrated knife, if you're not really good with a knife, will make this a little bit easier as well. Just trim off any little brown pieces that are left in there. And do a couple slices. And if you want to remove the center of the core, by all means do. There's a lot of fiber in there. It's usually a little tough. They do have pineapple cores that do all the work for you, but you can also just use the tip of your knife like that and pop it out. A couple more here. The reason I'm sauteing it is it gives just another dimension of the flavor of the pineapple. I'm going to saute it in a little bit of butter. Oh yeah, barbecue, great. And then you got the grill marks as well. Okie doke. Jerry sharpened all the knives this week, and I've cut myself twice. That's why I'm all taped up. Actually, I'm sorry, one's a paper cut. And definitely want to use a little bit of butter for this. Now, if your pan's really hot, just go ahead and throw what it is you're going to cook in right away, and that'll cool down the pan so the butter won't burn. And this may seem a little weird, but you want a little bit of salt on it, because that salt and that sweet really adds another dimension. And salt and sweet are great. You guys have probably put salt on watermelon, so you know what I'm talking about. Turn the heat down a little bit. And what goes better with pineapple than rum? This is 151, so we should get a nice flip this time. It's just for effect. You see how fast the pineapple caramelizes. I'll turn that down a little bit. Turn that down low. Now strawberries, one thing you want to do with strawberries, make sure you rinse them right before you're going to use them. Strawberries do not like water. So when you get them home from the store, don't rinse them. Rinse them right before you're going to use them. And they won't turn moldy as fast or break down or rot. And always save one of your prettiest strawberries in the bunch for a garnish. So a nice looking one like this. And for your garnish, you're just going to do real thin slices almost all the way up to the very top. And that way, when we fan it out, it'll look nice and pretty. And take your pineapple, put that there in the center. Slice up some of your strawberries. You could also add some bananas to this if you like banana, and the sauteed bananas would be very good. There we go. And seems every time I do this, people who've never had it really think that sour cream and brown sugar is going to be weird on strawberries, but it's just a great flavor. A little bit more there. I've noticed in Las Vegas that when you open up the brown sugar, put it into a Ziploc bag, because in about 3 weeks it'll just turn to a rock, because the humidity is so low here. Splenda has a great brown sugar now that has really tasty. It tastes like the real stuff. Looks just like the real stuff.
Who does?
Splenda? Yeah.
Oh, Splenda.
Yeah. They just came out with it a couple months ago. And I love nuts, so I often cook with nuts. And so I'm gonna do some walnuts. Toasted pine nuts would be good. Pistachios, toasted almonds. Yeah, those would be good in there. And there you have it. Grilled pineapple with a little bit of strawberries, sour cream, and brown sugar.